going on YouTube? I'm Eric, welcome to the channel. In this channel, I've been documenting the process of turning my E46 from something like this into something more like this. Well, not quite, but you guys do get the picture. I am throwing a lot of crazy things at the car, really just making it my own unique build and documenting the process along the way. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, I highly recommend you go look at my video before, because this one will just make a lot more sense in terms of what I'm doing, and we're pretty much picking up right where I left off in that video. So highly recommend go checking that one out. If not, what I was doing in that one is I unveiled almost $5,000 worth of parts that we've been putting on this thing, such as M4 brakes, M4 seats from the F8X generation, M3 bumper, and then a whole bunch of odd and end things that I've been putting into it, like I said, just to make it my own unique thing, and I'm just documenting the process along the way. Alrighty, so if you do remember where I left off in the last one, we were having a problem putting the F8X brakes and rotors onto my little sedan. Now, I kind of explained the problems that we're having with that, some of the things that were going on, and I'll go back over those again. So today, I got something I think should allow us to finish that and hopefully get at least the M4 brakes on. Alrighty, so this is a complete rear end from an E46 M3. Now, there's a few reasons this is actually important for the build and a few advantages that this is going to give us. So one is the set screws. So I know I talked about it in the last video, but this is going to allow the rotor to have something to hold on to, or to hold the rotor onto the hub, rather than with my current setup, all we had was lugs to rely on. Alrighty, so number two, outside of the set screws, is going to be the actual parking brake itself. So with this setup, we are able to run the parking brake from an E46 M3, which is going to give us enough diameter to actually grip onto the larger diameter on the M4 rotors. Unlike my current setup, where the parking brake actually wasn't even an option because these did not come out far enough for the parking brake to actually work. So that's another big advantage to this. Third one's going to be the sway bar. So this is definitely, speaks for itself. The M3 was definitely a stiffer car. It was meant for, some track use. And so having the M3 sway bar on there is definitely going to give us more stiff ride, but also, better handling and stuff like that. The last advantage to running this setup is we do get an M3 diff, which is a 3.62 or 6.4 gearing ratio, which is going to help a lot with future project, and it'll all start to make sense. Now, there are a few downsides to this. It's not all peaches and cream when you're swapping something that doesn't actually belong. First one is I actually have to put this thing in the car. Now, I don't know if you guys can see my current setup, but I simply just have some jack stands holding up the car. I don't have a lift, and this thing isn't even level. So that's definitely going to be a problem, and it's going to be a pain trying to put this thing in there. Next downside to doing this swap is going to be my suspension. I do not believe, I will have to read some more forms, but I do not believe my current suspension, just from a stock 328/99, is going to be compatible with the M3 control arms, tie rods, all that good stuff. I don't think it's going to be compatible. Kind of bittersweet. I was going to get new suspension anyway. In this case, it's just going to be M3 suspension. Alrighty, and then the last problem that we're going to run into that I can think of when doing this setup is going to be the width. Now, the E46 rear end is wider than the stock one, than the standard 328 one, which is a problem because if you guys remember the width that we're running now with the 275s in the back, she's pretty thick back here. And so adding a few more millimeters is just going to push us out a little bit more. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start putting the subframe into the car. First, we're going to have to remove that, so that's where I'm going to go ahead and start. And I'll show you guys that along the way. Alright, YouTube. So I've been out here working on getting off my old E46 rear M, and I pretty much got it all the way done. Now, where all I need to do is actually unbolt the diff casing, just actually unbolt it from the chassis, and then at that point we'll be able to actually drop the subframe, stuff like that. So this is what we're looking like currently. So with the trailing arms, control arms, suspension's pretty much all free. Just a quick disclaimer, I've actually never worked on suspension before. I've never changed it, never put on aftermarket suspension. But I think I'm gonna have to in the future, just looking at this. So when I go put some gloves on, I'll show you I can actually pick this up, which I don't think is a good thing. I don't know, I could be wrong. Alrighty, so right now I'm in the process of removing the parking brake cable, which sits right in there. I'm removing it out because it comes through the rear subframe and goes into the chassis, where you pretty much pull the handbrake. And so apparently that's like a super big problem when people try to remove these, because it's a very thick wire, it's hard, and it's not very flexible. So if that's not completely out, then the subframe won't come out. Alright, so right here you can kind of see the problems that I'm having with the e-brake cable. So it's the one that's slooped down, because I did pull it because it was sitting over here by the rotor. So I did pull it out, so it does have some slack, but it's actually stuck in right here for some reason. And I've been hammering it away, you know, doing everything I can to actually get it through. And then once it comes through, the whole subframe actually should drop. All right, because I don't feel like taking all this apart, all of the arms and everything, to actually get the parking brake cable out, what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to take my angle grinder and I'm just gonna cut them. I went to AutoZone, asked the guy, you know, if they carry them, whatever. Said, yeah, they can get them there. And it's like 50 bucks for the set. FCP Euro, it's like 20 bucks. So I'm not even gonna worry about, you know, trying to pull them out, trying to preserve them or anything like that. At that price, I might as well just go ahead and get some new ones. Also went and got an E14 Torx bolt. So this is exactly what we need to actually take the drive shaft off of the diff. And so once we take the drive shaft off and cut these parking brake cables, the diff should come out and we should be good. Alrighty, so got both diffs out. You can definitely see the difference between the two. This one's definitely smaller, not as beefy. Frame's also a little bit different. Alrighty, so with the subframe out, that gives me a very, very good chance to check out the rear subframe. You know, these cars are notorious for subframe cracks, corrosion and stuff going on down here, where it'll actually tear through the chassis. There's no cracks, there's really not even rust down here. And that's anywhere. It's where the springs used to connect. Here's where the rear mounting points were for the subframe, on this side, and then also on the other side. As you can see, there's honestly nothing to be concerned about. So even with the subframe looking the way it does, pretty well, you know, not many problems at all, nothing major, not even anything concerned. I was gonna go ahead and get a reinforcement kit for the rear subframe, but after seeing it, I think it can wait, at least until, you know, we do an engine swap, we start making some more power. Then I think it'll be a little more of a concern, but for right now, with no cracks, no rust, nothing going on underneath there, I think it's fine. Alrighty, and that is officially an E46 M3 rear subframe on a non-M, a 99 328 sedan. Safe to say I'll never be doing this again. I will never be putting a rear subframe into a car in at least in these conditions. You know, maybe if I had a lift, maybe if I was in a shop. Even then, I'm probably still not going to do it because this was a pain. I had to go get some moving dollies. I don't know if you guys can see them over here. I had to go get some moving dollies so I could actually get the arms on each side, jack up the middle, and the jack wasn't cooperating. So it's definitely a process. Need to go get cleaned up. Obviously, there's still a lot more we need to do. Still need to put the springs in, you know, finish putting the arms all on, try to see if we can connect the suspension. If not, you know, it is what it is. And then, you know, that was just step one. We still got to figure out if these brakes are going to work on this or not. So, you know, it's another day, and we are going to finish working on the rear end of my E46. Now we did go ahead and bolt up the suspension components, you know, the arms, and good news. So the suspension actually works from my car on the rear subframe. So I don't have to go out right now and go get new suspension, anything like that, because it actually bolts up. As you guys can see, everything's actually bolted. Everything's actually on the car. So that's really good. So really the only problem that we're dealing with now is just the drive shaft. And I've been reading a little bit online, and I'll continue to read a little bit more, but the suspension's all in there. Everything is looking good. So like I was saying in the last video, where the rotor sits, so imagine this is the rotor right here. So where it actually sits, it was so pushed in and so close to the factory mounting points for the caliper that the actual caliper could not squeeze in between the rotor and the mounting points. So what I went ahead and did is I went and got some 5mm spacers. These were really cheap, it's like 12 bucks for 2 of them off Amazon. And these are going to space the rotor out 5mm and allow the caliper to squeeze in between the rotor and the mounting points. This is the 5mm spacer that I was talking about. I went and got. Like I said, this is going to sit on the hub itself, and it's going to space out the rotor 5mm from the hub, giving us enough clearance for the rotor to fit in between here, or the caliper to fit in between here and the rotor. So the only problem with these is there is a tiny little lip. I don't know if you guys can see that. Because they're not actually designed to go all the way on to the hub, they're designed to just sit right here, because the rotor would actually sit behind it. So if you can see this little lip right here, this little notch, we can't actually get this all the way flush with the hub. So what I've been having to do, and what I did on the other side, was I just grinded this down to where it just follows the outside line right here. So that all has to be removed, this little inner lip. Alrighty, so this is what we're looking like now. So I went ahead, I have the spacer on, and you should be able to see it through the hole, that little silver piece right there. So that's actually spacing out the rotor 5mm from the hub. And that is actually allowing, for the caliper, it's actually allowing these mounting points to fit in between the rotor and those mounting points right there. Which is great because the brake pads are actually lined up dead center, so I don't have to worry about one side wearing down quick or anything like that. So definitely gonna need some 5mm spacers if you guys plan on doing this. Now I am gonna be refinishing these calipers before I actually put them on and get everything going and actually able to drive the car. I'm just not exactly sure on what color I want to do just yet. And the only other thing I need to figure out as far as the rear brakes is, can I use my factory brake lines on these rotors? If so, I'll just go ahead and swap those over, bleed the brakes really quick. But if not, I'll have to order and figure out the lengths for what brake lines I need to run. What's going on, YouTube? So it's another day, and over the last few days, you guys have been seeing me put these brakes and rotors onto my E46. And so that's what we're currently looking like. So they actually look really good. So everything fits as it should. I did have to bend the heat shield back a little bit to make this fit. Did get both spacers grinded down to actually fit onto the hub. I need to get some F8 brake lines. But I figured the blue looks good, but as you guys can see, the M is kind of faded off, doesn't look the best. And since we're completely redoing the rear end anyway, you know, and I don't know if you guys saw the gold bolts that I've been putting on it just to kind of clean it up, make it look really nice. You know, it's not going to win any shows or anything like that, but it's just peace of mind. It's just my own unique thing. But since, you know, there's actually nothing holding these calipers back, you know, they haven't been bled, there's no brake lines on it, and the screws really aren't holding it super tight or anything like that, I figured now would be a really good chance to go ahead and refinish them, you know, get some more paint on them, get them cleaned up, get them nice, so when all that stuff does come in, you know, I can go ahead and just put these on. So that's what we're gonna do. Alrighty, so these are the state of the calipers going on to the E46. These aren't mine, but as you can tell, they're identical as far as the color and everything like that. So these are actually in really good shape. The only thing is this is starting to peel off a little bit, but other than that, they look pretty good. So it's not gonna require too much prep, you know, to get them the way that they should be, to get them painted, you know, refinished, get some more vinyl on them. It's not gonna be too much of some prep. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take off the brake pads and everything holding the brake pads on, and then get it taped up, clean it up quite a bit, as far as like this, all this little debris and, you know, brake dust and stuff that's just been caked on for years. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all that cleaned up. So I've been out here spray painting the caliper. I did two and a half coats of primer, of some flat gray primer, and then I went ahead and put on some red. So I'm going with the gloss pepper red. I use a high heat primer. Paint is regular. There's no, you know, heat thing on there that's telling me it'll survive a certain amount of heat. So I'm gonna top it off with some high heat clear coat for the calipers. Now I'm only doing one because, you know, if I don't like it, it's easier to just go ahead and fix one rather than four. If I do like how the red comes out with the decal and everything like that, I'll go ahead and start doing all four. Alrighty, so this is the caliper in its current state. This is with the red painted on it. Actually looks pretty good. I did mess up with the piston. The little thing, you guys can probably see from the time lapse, but the little thing right here was just falling off. So I did get some paint on it and in it a little bit. I don't think that should be a problem. But the other side is fine because the tape actually stuck to it. So it looks pretty good. Definitely not perfect. There are some, you know, minor imperfections, as you guys can see from right here. Just a few little chips going on. And then I don't know exactly what's going on with this paint right here. I did sand these down with 300 grit, and then went over top of it with 1,000 grit just to keep it pretty smooth. It looks pretty good. One thing that I did not account for, the cardboard that I actually put the caliper on, it was sticking. So every time I would spray the caliper, the paint would get on the cardboard. And so when I would flip this thing over to do the other side, it would pull. And so that's what happened here, and then also at the bottom of these. So I had to go through multiple times, flip it over, paint it, let it sit for way longer than I thought, and then paint the other side and do it again. But that's what it's currently looking like. Now I did get some M decals off Amazon. Gonna be using these little decals to give it that M logo that we painted over. And the M, they're all their own sticker. Alrighty, let's see what we can do. Let me turn this a little bit so y'all can see a little bit better. So I want to get this thing as even as possible. And I think if I Alright, so put it on there. Just see, because from the look of it right now, I don't like the look of the sticker. I think the M looks a little weird. So I'm just gonna keep pushing this thing down, and hopefully it sticks. I'm gonna try to get all the corners on them. Last thing I wanna do is pull this thing off, and then paint starts to come with this top piece right here. Bam. Actually looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty good. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put a top coat of clear over this. Like I said, it is high heat clear coat. So I'm gonna put a few layers on here, probably 2, and that should be the end of this rear. Bam, and that's what we're looking like currently. So I did get the calipers and the rotors as well as the wheel on. As you can see, that thing looks pretty good. Now the decal that I ended up using, little M decal, it's actually reflective. So at night, if a light shines on it, you can actually see it. It's pretty bright, looks really good. So the calipers, it'll definitely look better when I take the car off the jack stands, but I am waiting for the other one to dry before I do that, because I want you guys to see, you know, just really how good it will look. How good it's gonna look when everything's, you know, all together. It looks crazy good. And these are some beefy brakes underneath or behind these wheels. If we just do a comparison to the fronts, I mean, it's pretty much like there's no rotor in there at all. And then the green, I was feeling the green back in the day, not anymore. Just the size difference, and these are just the rears. The fronts are even bigger, so I'm excited to see what this thing's gonna look like. This is one of the last things that we're waiting for when it comes to this rear brake job. So this is the passenger rear. Some of that blue that was on it from factory is actually sticking through a little bit because I did not put enough primer in these spots. And then like I was saying earlier, so when I actually pick this thing up and flip it, it's sticking to the cardboard and it's pulling some pieces with it. So I've had to go through, sand some of this, repaint it, let it dry, and do it again. So I'm gonna come back tomorrow, and hopefully by tomorrow the clear will all be done, and should be good. Alrighty, another thing I figured we could go ahead and do as we wait for the calipers to dry, since I'm already outside, I'm already doing stuff, so might as well just go ahead and put on the E46 M3 rear bumper. that'll kind of show you guys what the fitment issues I was talking about. And now that we have the E46 M3 rear subframe in, you're definitely going to be able to see the width and how wide it's going to stick out. So that is an E46 M3 rear bumper on a 328. Ignore the rear spoiler. I've been working on that just a little bit, and you guys will see that in an upcoming video because it's become quite an eyesore. So, but what I really want you to focus on is just the fitment of the M3 bumper and what we're looking like. So this is one of the things that I was talking about with the M3 rear subframe that is going to be a little bit wider. And so because we're dealing with 275s, this thing's already super wide. Now, once I drop the car, this is definitely going to fix itself. The front won't stick out as much as it is right now because the wheel is like this, not, you know, how it should be. So the camera's a little messed up on it because it's just kind of hanging, as you guys can see.